Now, continuing with pitching, after signing Sean Manaea to a 2-year deal, Mark Feinstein reported that the Mets are actively trying to trade for more starting pitching. Although it's unclear what caliber pitching they will acquire on the trade market, the Mets have been one of the multiple teams checking in on White Sox star pitcher Dylan Cease, whose ask continues to be steep regarding 2 to 3 premium prospects. Other starting pitchers to watch on the trade market include Marlins left-handed pitcher Jesus Luzardo, who is expected to be shopped aggressively, as well as Logan Gilbert, Freddie Peralta, Mitch Keller, and Tyreek Skubal. At its current state, the Mets rotation is headlined by breakout ace Kodai Senga, along with the additions of Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, and the trade acquisition of Adrian Hauser, as well as 35-year-old lefty Jose Quintana. With the David Stearns likeliness of a 6-man rotation, sixth-arm options for the Mets include Tyler McGill, Joey Lucchesi, Jose Budo, and David Peterson, who will miss the first few months of the season recovering from hip surgery. This is actually kind of weird because I'm pretty sure after the Sean Manaea signing, there was some reports from other sources that the Mets may have been done with their rotation. And then hours later, it says that they were trading. So I don't know what the hell is true here.
With the offseason, you never really know exactly who to believe as far as when teams say, oh, they're done. They're not done. Like, actions speak louder than words. So we'll see if any of these guys, they do add. But for me, I think the guy that probably makes the most sense, in my opinion, is Freddie Peralta. I know we just talked about Wandy Peralta, but I think there's a lot to like with Freddie Peralta. Obviously the David Stearns connection, no doubt about it. Milwaukee, this, that, and the other, whatever. He was an all-star a couple years ago, so I like that. That's always very important to me that they were an all-star. The age, that's another massive thing. Here's a guy who just finished a 27-year-old season, about to enter his prime. So that's perfect for if you want to build a starting rotation. And the other thing to me that I think is also really key is, okay, they've been making a lot of these one-year deals, like Severino, 1-year deal. Quintana, last year of his deal. Is Senga going to opt out? How long is Sean Manaea going to opt out if he has a decent year? Adrian Hauser, how long is he going to be here? Like, for me, there's no actual guys that's like, okay, they're going to be here for a while. One of the best things about Freddie Peralta is that contract. This is a guy that has a club option in 25 and a club option in 26, AAV of $3 million. Like, that combination is almost impossible to get, where you have a guy, and you know what? He's not an ace. He's not going to win you a Cy Young. He's not a number one. Is he number two? On his good days, yeah. But what he does is something that is still very important to having a quality rotation. Here's a guy who can hang out right in the middle of your rotation on a good team and you're number 3. That's where he was with Milwaukee with Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. He hovers around your number 3. He gives you 30 starts, great age, great contract, consistent year after year. Again, not amazing numbers, but very good numbers. And I just think that he checks all the boxes of what any team would want, and I think most importantly, what this team could need. And I think that based off the other pieces that are already in this rotation, I think this is a guy that you slide right in there because not only they're not getting Dylan Cease. I mean, let's call it like it is. I feel like, there are other teams that really could use him, and for them to not give up to that asking price, which is a lot of high-end prospect talent that we know the Mets are not going to give up. I mean, that's been evident in the Steve Cohen era. They're not going to be trading a lot of this top-end talent. So I would just kind of cross Dylan Cease off of the board. Jesus Luzardo, he's a guy that obviously his career has kind of been all over the place. We've seen good moments. We've seen bad moments. It's the Marlins. Would they be willing to trade a starting pitcher? I feel like they try to fleece us, honestly. I feel like they try to really increase the asking price to the Mets. Tyreek Skubal is one that I like a lot. I also love his age. Here's a guy who's left-handed, so he has that, again, that contract control, because I do want to see them, if they're going to have like this window of sustained success, there has to be at least some young starting pitchers that are going to be here year after year at very reasonable cost. So I think a guy like Skubal, who had a very nice season this year, albeit a small sample size, would definitely be someone I'd be interested in. And I would hope he would not cost anywhere near what a Dylan Cease would cost. So it would kind of fit more of what the Mets are looking for. Again, another guy that hang in your mid-rotation. And then another guy who also is very appealing to me is a guy like Logan Gilbert. Again, the age and things like that. So there definitely are, in my opinion, a lot more enticing options in the trade market compared to free agent market. I think these guys are better fits for the Mets than the guys in the free agent market. And this is where I really want to see them go after. I mean, I would be very happy if they got a Freddie Peralta or a couple of these other guys I mentioned, because like we've said, like, okay, they have a rotation. It's okay. It's not great. It's not something that you feel comfortable with in the playoffs. And if you actually did add one more guy, like a Peralta or whoever, you actually have an okay 6-man rotation now. Like, a 6-man rotation is way more feasible and much sustainable, I think, and easier to envision actually happening when you have that group as the guys on your team. So I do want to see them added, because, again, it's like, okay, the rotation is okay, but how about let's be good? How about that? Like, can we actually be good? So I would like them to add a guy in the trade market, no doubt.
With the rotation, they really have to be careful with how they distribute this, because the two pitchers that are making the most money in the Mets rotation are not even pitching for us this year. So I think that when you look at it, you already have $40 million dead in this rotation that was like being spent for, like, what was it? About 130 million last year, and it was so goddamn bad. So I think the best way to look at it, if you are going to make another addition to the rotation, it needs to be on the trade market. Like, it has to be, because you need some flexibility with somebody in that rotation. Because you look at it right now, Senga's the only one that I think is like guaranteed to be there next year. Or does he have an opt-out after year 2? I think it's year 3 or something like
I
that.
thought it was year 3.
It might be year 3, something like that. So you look at, Severino, Manaea, Adrian Hauser, Jose Quintana, all of these guys could be gone next year. Having the top of your rotation with Senga and a controllable starter as your number 2, that's a good foundation going into the next year, whether you like what you saw in a prospect. Let's say Blade Tidwell breaks out or Christian Scott breaks out. I think that the Mets need a 1-2 for next year and a 1-2 for this year, obviously, to make the 6-man rotation a lot better depth-wise. I like Tyler McGill, of course. We know I have a soft spot for him, but I would like to see him in a trying pinch right now. Probably start off in AAA, or maybe just start off in the bullpen, something like that. Like, I don't want to see him as the first ever 6th man. Like, I'd like to see Hauser as the 6th man, or, if there's an injury, you have the 6th man as Severino or something. Like, I want to see them like deep in this rotation. Again, like I've said, with quantity, I think the best way to cap this off is on the trade market. That being said, Jesus Luzardo is the main guy that I am going after right now, because that is a potential ace right there. Okay. This is someone who throws freaking gas from the left side, disgusting slider. I mean, this is a strikeout pitcher who's only 26 years old, control through 2027. I mean, this is the number one guy that I would go after. The problem is, and like we've said with Dylan Cease, similar to Dylan Cease, the asking price could be very similar to what it was with Dylan Cease. Now, again, I think that overall, when he hits the stride, Jesus Luzardo will be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Like, he was expected to be when he was there with Oakland, but it just, didn't work out. But now he's kind of hit that stride now. So I think that is a perfect number 2. I don't care if he's a lefty, or you have too many lefties, or you have too many righties, or whatever. Get me the best talent. And this is incredible talent right here. This is a strikeout pitcher from the top of your rotation. And comparing to Verlander and Scherzer, and then Senga and Luzardo, it's younger. They can only get better. And you have the years of control. There were some concerns about Luzardo and some injury history last year. 32 starts, and we've talked about this before, 32 starts at a 25-year-old season. If he can continue to do something like that, I mean, that is something that the Mets are really, really going to need from the top end of the rotation. Right now, I love Sean Manaea. I think that Manaea is someone who could be a 2 in a pinch. At his best, he can be a 2. Luis Severino's been a 2 before. Adrian Hauser back into the rotation. Jose Quintana back into the rotation. I think that you have potential 2s in Manaea and Severino, but on the upswing of a guy who could be possibly an ace, of a guy like Jesus Luzardo. Dylan Cease, I think, is kind of a long shot. Logan Gilbert, I'd love to get Mitch Keller. I think Mitch Keller is a fantastic pitcher. Just these young, controllable pieces if you are going to address the trade market. Speaking of realistic ways of how this might go, I think they're just going to get another back end piece. I think that they're just going to kind of address it in the way that like maybe they went for either Hauser, how they traded for Lucchesi, like these just back end pieces that you just swing a little trade for. If they could get a number 2 starting pitcher on the trade market, I would love to attach a crappy reliever contract on there or something like that. Like just get something out, like another piece, so it can kind of lower it, because the Mets are just so hesitant to give up these prospects. And I understand not wanting to do it, but again, if the opportunity presents itself where the Marlins are calling you of what you want for Jesus Luzardo, I do it. I definitely would do it. And a lot of it goes for all these other pitchers. Like Tarik Skubal is another one with high upside. I get it. You might see it with maybe some pitching prospects. One of them will stick. You'll see something in spring training that you like. But I would like to see, some of the major league experience, but guys who are on the upswing to be your number 2 starter. I don't need to see the Mets just shell out 8 years to Jordan Montgomery because he had a good ERA in the postseason, and he's going to continue to do that at age 30. I think that they're going to address the trade market with back end pieces, but I think the best way to do it is to pair somebody up with Senga.
No matter how you look at it, the guys that they have right now in the rotation are not the guys they're going to have going forward, because the way I see it is that you have Luis Severino on a 1-year deal. If he's awful, I'm not re-signing him.
Yeah,
I'm like, stay away from me. But if he somehow becomes really good again, someone's overpaying him and giving him a crazy ace contract, which you're also not doing. So no matter what, he's not going to be here. So that's why it's like, okay, then where are you going to get that cost control? Because you have it? Maybe like, again, like you're like, okay, let's have spring training. Like, does Christian Scott step up? Does Hamill step up? Does Tidwell stand up? Vassell, like, does anyone step up? Whereas you could just like, okay, let's make a trade and get someone we know is good. Like, let's just get Peralta or Luzardo or somebody and just kind of solve all your worries and not have all these question marks. I think is just really important, because, the one team that for the Mets, as we all know, that did get far was the great young rotation, and do we have DeGrom in the farm system? Do we have Harvey and Wheeler and Noah and all them guys hanging out still? No. So how else are you going to work on building up these young pitchers? By acquiring them. Like, if you don't have it, go get it.
I think it's just the perfect scenario right now. You just look at the rotation. You don't have it. You don't have a 2 there. You have a 1. You have your number 1. You have your guy. But you need somebody else there, because that's just kind of how it was, formulated with like this certain wild card series. If they were to get there, we're not saying they're not going to, but you need a 1-2, a 1-2-3. And right now they have like a few 3s, a few 4s, back end pieces, and then your ace and Senga. So when there is the game that you need to win, you go to, multiple pitchers that can probably step up in that type of environment. There has to be a controllable piece that isn't a prospect at the top of that rotation, because, you'd like to build for next year, which we have seen the Mets kind of take the focus to 2025 a little bit more than 2024. Trading for a number 2 or trading even for a number 1A and 1B, pair up with Senga. I think that's the best way to do it.